In this video we're going to solve a story problem using an equation, write an equation and solve it and see if we can figure out the answer to this question up here. A pharmacist found at the end of the day she had 4/3 as many prescriptions for antibiotics as tranquilizers. She had 14 prescriptions altogether. How many did she have for tranquilizers? So I underlined in red that phrase 4/3 as many prescriptions for antibiotics as tranquilizers because that's going to be the most confusing part we're going to have to deal with. Let's look at the easier part to deal with, which is understanding what that 14 is about. She had 14 prescriptions altogether. So we know that however many prescriptions she had for antibiotics plus the number of prescriptions for tranquilizers would equal 14 total prescriptions. Alright, now let's go up and deal with this phrase. I think one of the hardest parts about this phrase is the 4/3. So let's pretend, and this is like a totally separate problem, okay? Let's pretend like it said twice as many. What if it said twice as many prescriptions for antibiotics as tranquilizers? I'm abbreviating a little bit here. Not very well. Antibiotics as tranquilizers. Okay. Tranquilizers. If she had twice as many prescriptions for antibiotics as tranquilizers. So what that would mean that she would have 2 times as many prescriptions for antibiotics as tranquilizers. So let's let the number of tranquilizers be X. Okay, so X equals the number of prescriptions for tranquilizers. So in this case, if she had twice as many prescriptions for antibiotics, then the antibiotics would be 2x. That would be the number of prescriptions for antibiotics. So with that in mind, we're going to go over here and look at this. Instead of twice as many, it's 4/3 as many. So instead of multiplying by 2 for twice, we're going to multiply by 4/3. We know the tranquilizers, we're still going to let that be X, and now the antibiotics is 4/3 as many, so it's 4/3 times X. So now we've got our equation, 4/3 X plus X equals 14. So hopefully that helped to think about why it's 4/3 times X if we think about twice as many. Sometimes that's a good strategy to come up with a problem that's easier, replace something in the original problem with something you find easier, and figure out what it would be, and then go back and just use that same strategy for the number that's a little more difficult. Okay, so let's solve this. Now we got to get our x's together. We have a couple choices here. We could combine our like terms right now, or we could get rid of this fraction by multiplying everything by 3. You know, it's kind of up to you. Let's go ahead and practice clearing fractions, because that's a good skill to know how to do. So I don't want this 3 in here. That's my denominator that is creating my fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply basically the whole equation by 3, which means I have to multiply everything by 3. So you think about distributing in this 3 and multiplying 3 by every single term, including the 14. So what that would look like, I'll take my equation, I'll write it again just to be clear. I'd have to times each term by 3, and the benefit of this is it's going to get rid of your fraction. So these 3's are going to cancel. That's where my fraction goes away. So I have 4x plus 3x equals 42. Now this equation is really easy. 4x plus 3x is 7x. And then I divide both sides by 7 to get x by itself. And I come up with x equals 6. So remember, x was the number of tranquilizers. How many did she have for tranquilizers? So the answer would be 6 prescriptions for tranquilizers.